Okay, and we're back for a riveting talk about our matrix today. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do this as a video or I wanted to do it on a stream. Let me just check my audio. We're good. I couldn't decide, so I decided I was going to do it on a stream. I was going to come on a little bit early and unpack it a little bit because it might take me a little while to unpack how I want to present it. And this one kind of came to me today when I was looking at a lot of reviews of the Barbie, and I was watching someone do what they call Barbie makeup, which is apparently now a new kind of way to do your makeup. They call it Barbie makeup, which is how they did the makeup for the Barbie movies and how they did the makeup for the Barbie red carpet. So I did do my own version of Barbie makeup today, which caused me to, but I didn't have pink eyeshadow. I didn't have glittery pink eyeshadow to really cap off the Barbie look, and it does come with a lot of highlighter. So I had to tone down my lights a little bit. Because the whole point is the glowiness and the pink, you know. I don't have a lot of pink, so I had to kind of dig in the closet because I don't wear a lot of pink. In general, it's not one of my go-to colors. I'm more for the blue tones, which I did a video, a while back regarding different colors and which ones you wear, what you're kind of embracing. Pink is a very feminine, kind of your divine feminine being energy. So I've been out of that for a long time, that type of energy, and I cycle through my clothes quite a bit because I do so much on-screen stuff. I try to cycle stuff out and get some different stuff and cycle out again. So the pink stuff I wore years ago, I don't really have anymore. So anyway, so I don't have a lot of it. So I had to dig through and find something to do. We're going to Barbie talk, and we're going to talk about the Truman Show, which I haven't seen in a while. Barbie I have not seen yet, but I got a gist of what it's about and what it's some of the issues it's talking about. So we're going to take it in a consciousness level, as we always do, and we're going to start showing and dissecting how it mimics our own matrix and how it might differ, you know, because we do a lot on this channel about showing what we're seeing and how we construct everything. So we're going to kind of take that in and we'll make it a little meta today. And we're going to go through these other things. So what do I want to say about some similarities? Because everything before I get off the makeup thing, you see a lot of different trends now in makeup. When I was growing up, it was kind of distinct, kind of one way. And now you see a lot of different type of what last week I did like a different, more of a, it's called a halo, but it's more like a galactic, and more, to me it looked a little more galactic, maybe more of an angelic kind of makeup. And then you see a lot of the bold colors that come down now that me looks more like galactic makeup, which to me is kind of a fun way to look at different aspects people are showing, different things we're working on embodying, even though they're doing it very unconsciously sometimes. But it's always fun to kind of look at what people are doing. So I'm kind of going to be curious to see all the Barbie fever, all the pinks and all the Barbie makeups and all that stuff, if that'll kind of stay around for a while, if it's going to kind of dissipate in the collectives as the movie kind of fades away. Because it is a very being energy. It's a very feminine energy, the pinks and those types of looks. So be curious to see how that kind of carries on and what the collectives, and kind of look at the phase the collectives are in. And it's really two distinct phases. I might actually do a video that kind of does that with the Oppenheimer movie a little bit, because you're seeing two very distinct different phases of different collectives right now. So, okay, back to dissecting our matrix against the Truman Show and the Barbie movie, which, like I said, I haven't seen the Truman Show in a while, but I do know in the Truman Show, he was kind of subject to what everyone else was doing, right? And the Barbie movie, she's kind of, how someone else thinks about her is how her world starts to go askew. So we're going to kind of tackle some of that today. So when we start talking about our matrix, similar to some of the things they bring forth in the Barbie movie, is when she starts, someone who is kind of messing with that reality, right? So if you have to kind of take yourself as like, we're always messing with our reality, right? And it does change over time. So if we take Barbie Land as this kind of a utopia, whatever we're going to say is utopia. And we've had a discussion before on this channel about how different people view heavens, right? You know, everyone's not going to have the same view of that. You know, to some people who watch Barbie Land, that doesn't seem like that's you know, the best thing in the world. But someone else is going to have a different view of it. So it really doesn't so much matter about that. It's just we're kind of in our own little private world. And the more you start going through ascension, the more you start to rebuild your own little private world again. And we're kind of got to morph through it, So we morph through it as children, because when we come through as children, we're the most connected. Babies are super connected. You go through your toddler phase, you're still super connected. There's a lot of things we do along the way to ease children out of that connected state, and not in a cruel way. You see a lot of people who do videos on, ascension, and do videos on human experience. You'll see it a little bit more for people in a galactic phase. They call it the human experiment. How, we're brainwashed and we're pulled away, and, I didn't sign up to do this, and I want to go back to this state or whatever. But we did all sign up to do it. So, when babies come in, depending on who they picked as their parents, which we do that, whoever we picked as their parents, they're going to bring them through it a certain way, and then they might spend the rest of their life reconnecting back in. And that's kind of the whole journey of what really ascension is, and how far we've been able to go, really since 2012 to now, to really embody in a lot of that connection and all of our different aspects. Which, when you start looking at different media, and when I do kind of these tie-ins with different things that are going on, different movies out, we did a whole one on time travel with different things that they show in different movies on time travel, but how we really can do it ourselves. But when you see a lot of this stuff on screen, everyone will buy into the world, but the minute they leave the theater, they don't. It is an activation for everyone in a certain space. So everyone's going to be activated by it in one way or the other. There's going to be no time when someone's going to say, oh, that's not. It's going to affect everyone differently, right? But on some level, on some DNA level, everyone's going to be activated by everything we see. Everything you bring into your consciousness is an activation, and every movie you see is an activation. So whether you believe in whether you're really into the Matrix, whether you're really into the Truman Show, whether you're really going to be into how Barbie shows the meta world and how we affect the meta world, which is really just our own world, there does still seem to be a disconnect in that. Because we have a hard time wrapping our arms around that we control everything. It's like, how can that be? How can we control everything? And Barbie Land, she controls everything. Everyone in that world is controlling everything. And they're going to use the, people playing with the dolls are kind of controlling the dolls. But we do the same thing with our outside world. Different thoughts affect how we see things. Different thoughts affect how, everyone is interacting, how everyone experiences everything. There were some Barbies in the world that are having a certain time. There are other Barbies in the world that aren't having such a great time, based on how the thoughts are coming in and how the thoughts are being magnified into that world. Now they're going to take that world and make it a little subset world, whereas when we look outside of us, that's our world. We're building it, whether you want to be the Barbie of your reality. Everyone should be the Barbie of their reality, because whether you like Barbie or not, and we can get past the girl boy thing on Barbie, one thing that Barbie does is she does control everything in her world. And she doesn't take full ownership of controlling everything in her world, in a sense. I feel like it's still the disconnect there, but that's basically what Barbie does. She can do whatever she wants. She can create whatever she wants. Everyone she brings in is just to support her, which is really what we do every day. Everyone we bring in is to support our ascension process and for us to support theirs. There's a little disconnect, I think, there in the movie, but everyone that we bring in is to support us, right? Everyone we bring in is to kind of bring us farther into our journey, and to bring us farther into what we're trying to clear, what we're trying to see, what we're trying to understand. Do we have to let go of being in control of everything? And I think that's where you see the parity of kind of growing up in that. And then we have to start backtracking that and say, is that really growing up? It's going deeper into the human experience. It's not really expanding. You're forgetting how much you control. You're forgetting that we do control everything. There are little things that we do every day that we have complete control over. And there are certain points in your life, whether you call it deja vu, whether you start really getting into more lucid dreaming and being more in control of certain things that feel uncontrollable. Dreaming is one of them. if you haven't practiced any lucid dreaming techniques, I think I did a couple videos years ago on lucid dreaming techniques. And if there are questions about it, I can go a little bit more into it on the stream. Different things you can do to kind of be in the dream world. I've never been a huge lucid dreamer, but I am able to occasionally have more of a consciousness of what I have here in the dream as to what's going on in this reality and bring it into the dream and ask questions about what's going to unravel here. I used to do that a lot more years ago. I don't dream the way I used to anymore. I use it more as a clearing phase. I don't need to utilize it to see forward anymore because I can see forward in a waking state. So I don't have to have that. Sometimes it can clarify some things for me that I'm really not wanting to see. It can kind of clarify for me what I really don't want to bring forward and what I really don't want to have to deal with. I will then get that in the dream state because I'm still resistant to it in the waking state. If it's a big change I have to do, something I have to go through, then I'm resisting part of the ascension process I don't want to do, then that's kind of the, kind of the different ways that I'll still get that kind of 2x4 upside the head in a lighter way, I guess, than it used to be. But if I don't listen and I don't take those dreams seriously in a sense, and I kind of dismiss them and go, I'm not really doing that, then I will get hit later on with a bigger universal 2x4 because it's something I'm doing that I have to correct. And I have to release any fear I have around the process of what I don't want to go through. For a lot of us, it can be the body stuff. It can be stuff going on with our bodies, things things starting to change in our body. And, if we do bring in, one thing I think the Barbie movie starts to show is if we even want to take it in a different direction and look at it as the whole human experience. And when it starts to chip, when it starts to fall apart, when there starts to be glitches in the matrix, so you can take it from a lot of different angles on how you want to view it or how your perception is going to view it. And that's going to tell you the different phases you're in. And you can do this with any media. You can look at it from a zillion different directions. And sometimes you might just see one direction. And then you might look at it a couple years later and see 100 different directions on also other things it's doing. So it's going to activate some people on a very basic level of feminism and, masculinity and the battle of the sexes. Now, that's a very third dimensional way to be activated, but it's still an activation for someone. That is what you see people really on the internet battling over right now, which is funny because they're kind of mirroring the same thing. This is this. It trashes one gender to pop the other gender up, blah, blah, blah. So that is one way people look at it, and that is a way to go through the physical clearing some of the anger about that, clearing some of the, and remember, we've all been everything. We've been girls, we've been boys. So I always think it's funny when people start, arguing about certain things, because we've been everything. In every timeline, you're everything, coexisting now as everything. So it doesn't really matter which way you take it. You've been the victim, you've been the murderer, you've been all of it. So, but it does trigger that sadness. It triggers that anger. It triggers that loss of identity. I think for a lot of it now, it's like the loss of identity. You see a lot about people being girl dads. That's like the hot phrase right now, and then what about, boy moms? What about moms that are trying to bring up, little boys in some of this arena right now? So you can see how all that starts to mesh together, and it is it's a way that the different collectives can clear that energy. It's just a harsher way to clear it, but even on that level, it's going to activate. So when we talk about looking at how it activates different people, you just can see what they're working through. It is a harder way to work through it when you're going to go on and argue about anything and battling. When you're battling, you're in your ego. So is it an ego way to clear some energy? Yeah. Is it a harsher way to clear some energy? Yes. But it's still clearing energy. It's still going through those things. There's a big thing in the movie about how, Ken is just kind of there for Barbie and he's an accessory to Barbie. Well, technically that's all he was. He was always an accessory to Barbie. He was always an accessory to her world. But everything in our life is an accessory to our world. But, or do we really want to admit we treat things like an accessory to our world? Everything in our world is meant to be an accessory. And we, in our human aspect, treat everything as an accessory. We treat everything as interchangeable. You see that a lot, I think, more now, really, than you ever had before as we clear some of this stuff. And it's also, I think, a product of going through timelines faster. We start to clear a lot of this energy. And the more energy we're clearing, we start to really look at people differently. But when you're in your human aspect, it's still all about us. When I'm in my human aspect, and when it raises its head from time to time, it wants to give its opinion. Its opinion is truly from what's best for me, what's best for us here. Let's not worry about anybody else. Everyone else is an accessory here. They're pawns on my chessboard. They don't matter. They don't have feelings. It's just about me. And that's what our human aspect does. So when we try to take that, the human world has the human consciousness, shall we say, has a very interesting way of taking something that is higher conscious and trying to distort it back and putting it back in the box of a human consciousness. You know, we all do that for a while because we don't know how to act in higher consciousness. We don't know how to be higher aspects. You know, we don't know what to do with it. You know, there's been so much. I mean, if you just go back through another way that the collectives are clearing a lot of this, it's been going on for years about body image. And Barbie has been a big backlash for body image, you know, for years and years and years about how Barbie looks. And, you know, discounting all the other things that Barbie has brought as far as Barbie doing everything, having every job, you know, having her own home, having her own cars, all that stuff is kind of put aside to see it in one frame. That, well, Barbie looks really pretty, so because Barbie's pretty, we can't like Barbie anymore. Or now there's a lot of more Barbie hate in that way. And even the movie was advertised like that in a bit. You know, if you hate Barbie, you're going to love it. And I'm like, well, who could hate Barbie? You know, who could hate Barbie? It seems like who could hate anything in a sense. But these are still ways to clear some of the collectives in that phase. And that's not to downgrade anyone in that phase. We've all been in different phases, or we're going to take different sections of media a different way. And you're going to see a lot of that clearing, you know, as time goes on. But when we're even in our own matrix, in the beginning, everything is an accessory to us. And we're not really being honest with ourselves and our human aspect if we don't look at everything as an accessory, because we change out cars like it's nothing. We change out people like it doesn't matter. No one really has feelings in that. And when you're in your human aspect, we don't look at anyone else's feelings. You know, we don't have the capacity to. We don't even have the capacity to get in touch with our own feelings. So how are we going to look at anybody else's? You know, we don't have any way to do that. We don't have any way to bring that forward. We can't even comprehend anybody else because we can't even comprehend ourselves. You know, we can only love someone else as much as we love ourselves. And if we have no connection with ourselves, we can't connect with anybody else. So a lot of one way to look at some of the themes that we look at when we look at any Matrix movie, whether it's the original Matrix trilogies, whether it's the Truman Show where everything was kind of created for him and he was kind of reacting and everyone was kind of watching like how he reacted. Now, they do take out of that, you know, look at your own life, your own little Truman Show, but you're also the producer, and you're the director, and you're the writer, and your human aspect's just kind of playing in it, but all these other aspects are creating it to see what you're going to do. Are you going to pick, you're going to go through door A, you're going to go through door B. You know, which one are you going to do? What are you going to do next? You know, what is that? The show Jury Duty kind of touches on that a little bit too. You're seeing a lot of this media now on what's real, what's not real, you know, or the illusion within the illusion. You know, the jury duty is the whole creating an illusion around someone else's illusion. And how is that person reacting in the illusion, even though the original person created the entire illusion? So we can get very multidimensional. We can get very, very ingrained in what's real and what's not real. You know, The Matrix is a movie which everyone will go back to when they're talking about, you know, in even the Sixth Sense? I was going to say the Sixth Dimension. Sixth Sense did that beautifully too, where it showed everything from one perspective. When you went back and looked at everything from a separate perspective, you understood that you kind of made all these conclusions from looking at it one way. And that's what our human aspect does. The human aspect is always going to look at it one way. It doesn't have the capacity to look at it in different ways. So if someone has one opinion, that doesn't mean that opinion is not to be looked at. It doesn't mean that opinion is not valued. It's just an opinion in the collective consciousness of which they reside in that moment. That's all it is. It's their interpretation of data in the collective they are attached up to, and the collective in which they are more strongly attached up to, because we're all connected to higher consciousness. We just have not embodied it. We're not living it. But can we touch on it? Of course we can. Deja vu is touching on it. Anytime you dream of something, or lucid dreaming is touching on it, ascension is living from it. And that's kind of the difference. So if we even take, I'm going to use the Barbie movie a little bit more here, because I feel like there's a lot of different, and because it's fresher in my mind. I probably should have rewatched the Truman Show, but I'll probably do that at some point, because a lot of people do reference that in a case to even Jury Duty when they talked about that show, because those are probably a little more parallels. But when we go to look at some of the things that start happening to Barbie, is her world starts to chink apart. And that's what starts to happen in our human world. It starts to chink apart. All of a sudden, stuff we thought we made us happy doesn't make us happy anymore. All the things, the ways, even the way we wanted to look, all of a sudden we don't look like that anymore. You know, there's different markers in our DNA, and we've talked about this before, that go off at certain times in our lives. And you always hear about the crisis, right? That's the big term, because when the collectives, when everyone hits a certain point in their DNA, and it happens around the same time for everyone, it's, you know, oh my God, it's a pandemic. Everyone's having the same symptoms of something. Oh my God, it's the, you know, it's the midlife crisis, because it happens to everyone around the same time. Sorry, because of the DNA everyone's collected up to. It is, I got choked up on that one. The DNA everyone's connected up to, that collective, that everyone's kind of, when you're attached to that collective, you're going to have a very similar pattern. You're going to have a similar cadence. You're going to go through similar things. And because everyone goes through that at the same time. But really, it's just disillusionment. It's disillusionment on what's going on. And that's kind of what they start to kind of go there with the Barbie movie. And they kind of try to reverse it back a little bit, I think. Because everyone hits on these topics. And we can take any medium and break it down into higher consciousness. There's nothing we can't see, and see the different levels of how many layered it activates people on. And everything you see, everything you do, everyone you meet, is just a vehicle to activate your consciousness. Everything. Every song you listen to, everything is a vehicle to activate higher consciousness. I had a comment, I don't remember how long it was ago, about Little House on the Prairie. And it was struck me, it was such a funny comment, and we were talking about activating different realities. And the person's like, oh, I really want to activate that reality. And I'm thinking, oh, it looks like someone's going to have a picnic on a prairie, a very peaceful picnic on a prairie. That's kind of how I think about a Little House on the Prairie. But it's whatever it is for us, really, whatever dimensions we want to tap into. And because there's so much when you're in the collectives, and I've seen this a bit too, when you're in the collectives and you're trying to make the change within, and we even try to do that in our own ascension journey. So you see it on a micro level, we do it, and you see a lot of times on a macro level, we do it. Now that doesn't mean that some people are supposed to stay in certain situations and kind of try to I'm going to use the word beat down the system from within, but not so much because it's actually going to change anything, because it's working through the energy and they're clearing certain aspects of themselves when they do that. They're clearing energy out of their body when they do that. They're going through the physical experience because it's what they need to go through. Is on a long term going to change anything? I don't really feel like it does. I feel like until we disconnect from the collectives get weaker over time. The more we disconnect, the weaker the collectives get. And as long as we can disconnect from the collectives, they get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's when the collectives fall, because we plug into a different collective. Now, we do that on a micro level too, because a lot of us try to do that, you know. And you, like I said, the Barbie movie is a lot of different higher consciousness stuff you could break apart, which people probably would think that's kind of, well, it doesn't seem like you could do that. But when you start to look at it and how we parody things, you can see so much of it where they try to now let's take this world and we're going to now plug it in here, And now I'm going to create my version of, what I think is going to be a great world to live in. And now you come and live in that. And you can just see the disparity in the whole thing, right? And we've talked about this with different realities. When you try to shift the reality and expect everyone else to come back in it, and because now you're aligning it to something that's more empowered for you. But the whole point of that reality was to align it to empower you. And the minute you are now empowered, that reality no longer needs to exist anymore for you, because you have now, in a sense, outgrown it. Now you've stepped into your power, which is why you created it in the first place. And the minute I step into my power, now this reality can cease to exist. And it's going to morph into something else. The issue we get into is we think everyone else who's playing in that reality is once again just a prop for us, right? They don't have their own journey to go on. You don't have your own shit to do. You just have my shit to do. You don't have anything else you got going on. You only got going on what I got going on. So the minute we try to shift it, and the minute we try to change it into now this works for me, but it's not going to work for you anymore, because they've got their own things they got out of the reality, their own things they were supposed to show themselves, and now they're going to go on and do something else. And there's a part of it where if you're not going to play that role in that reality, and that's the role they want to play, they're going to go find something to play out that role, because they're not done with that. They're not done with that program themselves yet. They're going to go play it out again somewhere else. It's going through that physical reality to break through that energy, break down that program. It's a conscious act from an unconscious place, an unconscious program, and they'll go and play it out somewhere else. And then we have to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to try to retrofit? Are we going to try to go back to the way it was, which you find it's very difficult to do? You can't go back into lower frequency realities. And we're going to call them lower frequency, not to judge them, but because once you clear a certain thing, it's kind of like a video game, you clear a certain part, you go back, you can't really go back to that other part again. You'll never experience it the same way again. You'll never feel the same way about it again. You're always going to be having a different experience because you look at it from a different perspective. You're going to look at it from a different space now, a different consciousness. So the minute you look at it from a different consciousness, the whole thing starts to break apart. You see how it got constructed, and you understand why now it's deconstructing. We don't like the deconstruction phase. Barbie didn't like the deconstruction phase because that was the world she had lived. She didn't like the reconstruction phase they had when she wasn't there, and she goes back and now everything is kind of, this isn't my world. This is now this world, and I don't want to be in this world, but can everyone else still exist in this world the same way? So there's a lot of different things we can draw from how do we react when someone doesn't want to play the part anymore. How do we react when, we had created things that were just supposed to be there for us, and now all of a sudden they want to go off and do something else, or maybe they don't even want to, but we know they have to because this reality is ending, and we need for it to go on. I've had a couple questions on this lately too through different media channels about aligning realities. I've done a couple videos on that, kind of focused on aligning realities lately. How we align them from the get-go. And there was one thing that was said once. I did not originally say it, and I don't think I originally said it. I don't remember who originally said it. I don't know where I got it from. I would give credit if I remember, but I don't 100% remember it. But it was something to the effect, maybe I read it somewhere, I don't remember. I really can't remember. If you felt aligned in what you did, don't second guess that because they didn't react the way you wanted them to. And if you feel aligned in telling someone how you feel about something, don't feel like you did that incorrectly because they didn't react the way you wanted them to. They didn't play the role out you wanted them to play. It doesn't mean you were not aligned in your actions just because of the reaction you got. There's a little disconnect on that. There's a disconnect on because they didn't react the way I want them to, I didn't do that correctly, or I did that wrong, or I didn't align right. Because in my version, my human consciousness version of alignment is it all stays the same, yet I'm in a totally different role in here, and everything now is going to be uptick in frequency. So everyone else has to now align everything to where I am. Well, everyone else might not want to do that. I will tell you, based on my experience, majority of the time, nobody really does. They might come in and out of your life here and there, because if you are setting at a higher frequency, they can't hold that frequency for long periods of time. So they might be able to touch on that frequency. It's kind of an activation in a sense, and then go back down to their home frequency. It's still acting as an activation for them. It's just not as powerful of a, they haven't cleared enough from the body to hold it yet. And being able to hold it means embodying it in, anchoring it in, and that can be clearing up a lot of realities for them, but they're not ready to do that yet. So many people you're going to meet along this journey, they're just not ready for the journey yet. It's not their time yet. They're not supposed to be doing that yet. But we kind of try to retrofit everybody in. And if they don't fit back in, then all of a sudden we didn't do it. We didn't reconstruct it right. You know, it's not exactly right. And what's gotten easier for me is to understand that I'm the one that constructs the reality. And if certain people don't want to be in the reality, other people of the frequency that do will show up in that reality. And for a while, there won't be a lot of people in your reality. You kind of exist in your own frequency, and there's different reasons for that. There are different reasons for doing that because you have to learn to go on your own. You know, you can't always be huddled up around everybody else because you don't get your own chance to really work through, you know, and we talk about disconnecting from collective. So we have to disconnect from our own external world for long periods of time to figure out what we think of something, to understand how we feel about something, to understand on our own, you know, how we really perceive something and what we perceive as what in our humans are always going to say it's positive or negative, it's good, it's bad, you know, it's this, it's that. But when things start to fall apart, we kind of start to fall apart with it, and we kind of want to go back. And there's a scene in The Matrix where they give them a chance to go back, you know. And I haven't seen Truman Show for a while, but my bet is there's probably scenes in that where he can double down and go back in, but you can't really go back in because now you see the whole thing's fake. And it's not going to be as much fun anymore because you know the whole thing's fake. Same thing in the way, even though originally Barbie's like, no, I'll just stay in this world. After she is exposed to everything else, now I can't go back into that world anymore. You know, I can't go back into that world because it's not real. But what's not real? What's the part that's not real? Is the real world not real and the Barbie world's kind of real in a sense? Or is it the other way around? So in the movie, you know, they take it one way that her world's not real and you're going to go be in the real world. I would probably morph that a little bit and say neither one are real. They're both just as fake. But when the fakeness of one thing starts to show, it throws everything in our world into disarray, and we start to search for an answer. You know, we start to go on our hero's journey, on our seeker journey. Some people call it our hero's journey, on what are we going to do next? When everything in our world that we constructed based on everything that we had been taught, everything we knew. You know, I think Barbie does a cute way of dividing all the Barbies up. Everyone has their own thing they do. You know, you had just, when I was growing up, there was just kind of one Barbie. You didn't have smart Barbie or astronaut Barbie. You just had pretty Barbie. That was what she did. She was classic Barbie, you know, and then you got everybody else later on. And it's funny because, you know, they're all trying to find the one that can help them out because everyone's a little different. Even got kind of weird Barbie in there. It's a little different than everybody else. So when shit really goes strange, let's go talk to weird Barbie. Same thing happens in this world, you know, when you're in your human experience and the shit starts to go wonky. Let's go talk to the weird person who talks about the weird stuff. She's just a little weird. Let's go talk to her. She might be able to help us a little bit on what we're going to do. So the minute we get exposed to this not really what we thought it was, we go on our own journey. But we still created that whole thing. You know, and, you know, there's also the part where, you know, the thoughts were creating her world and the whole thing started to fall apart. And that's really what starts to happen to us. What we think about something, how important we think something is, gets taken away. What we really thought we wanted, all of a sudden we get it and it's not what we wanted anymore. You know, everything starts to just kind of, what's the word? It just starts to dissolve. And we don't like that dissolve part. I do so many videos that focus on that because I really feel like when you get to this phase and you're in the everything's dissolving and not much is coming up to take its place, and the stuff that is coming up to take its place, it's not what I wanted it to be because I'm still looking at it from a human perspective. But I will say, once you go through the experience, you understand why you had to do it. You understand why it was uncomfortable. You understand why you had to face stuff you didn't want to face. You might have to live with people you don't want to live with, in a sense, because it makes you face certain parts about yourself that are blocking you from the reality you kind of wanted to jump right to. You know, a lot of us want to jump right to this reality right here, but we don't want to do the work to get there. And in our human world, we would just try to jump, but we were jumping in a very superficial way, you know. And we really were there, but kind of not there. And that kind of can mimic some of the stuff they show in Barbie too. It's like you're in a dollhouse in a sense. We're trying to get here. I don't want to do any of the work, the internal work to get here and clear all the stuff I got to clear, because it's also not linear stuff. It's not, and that's why when you see all this stuff on mental health, I usually try to shy away from talking too much about human mental health, because it's a lot different than ascension mental health in a sense, because there really is no such thing when you go through ascension on mental health. Mental health from a human perspective, everything's kind of connected. You know, you have issues here, okay, you have issue, and it comes from this, or it's stemming from this, and there are some correlations when you get into ascension where you can kind of feel different things in your body get tight when you start talking about certain stuff. You know, you can feel different issues here, different issues there. Something's going on with me here. But it doesn't correlate the same way. You know, if you want to go into a reality where you're completely supporting everything in your environment, like maybe you're in the reality where we have to go through every reality from every side. You might have been the sole supporter from a human consciousness, but you won't be the sole supporter of your reality again, as far as we're just going to say financial support for now. You won't be the sole supporter from a financial perspective until you can do that from your highest place. You've only done that from your human consciousness. You haven't done that from your higher consciousness. I don't know if I'm frozen. Hold on. Let me see if I think I'm good. Yeah. Sorry. My video is acting up. You've only done that from one consciousness level. You haven't done it from your higher consciousness yet. Just like if you, maybe when you were growing up, you were supported by your parents or supported by someone else, or maybe when you were in a relationship, someone else supported you while you went through college, or when you were at home with the kids. You were being supported financially, and you were giving you were exchanging energetically something else for that support. But you didn't see it that way. You might not have viewed it as important as that, but you were doing it, right? But you weren't doing it from a higher consciousness. So when we get into a higher consciousness, now can you be supported from your higher consciousness perspective and see all the things you do give to that reality, even if it's not like financial support. You know, we have to be able to look at everything. We've gone through it here. And that's why there's a lot of, we feel like there's setbacks in ascension, because we feel like, oh my gosh, now I'm going backwards again, and I'm going to do all this again. But we're doing it from a different consciousness. I mean, until you can master doing it from that consciousness and see, okay, I'm being supported financially, and you know, however it is. For a lot of people during ascension, it comes in a lot of different ways. I've had a zillion different ways it's come in for me, and it might not be direct support. As far as I'm directly supporting myself, in a way I am, but just through maybe different channels, if that makes, you know, different things are coming in. A lot of people will go through unemployment, and they'll be unemployed, and they'll get unemployment checks, and that is definitely supporting them. Might not be how they wanted it. Maybe they wanted it to come through because of something else they did, a book they wrote, but they weren't getting royalties for that book, or that book hadn't been published yet, so they were getting something from the support came a different way, and not a way they really liked, but it was still coming in. We have to be able to kind of work through all that stuff, and we have to be able to market. I don't know if market, so it's funny I use that word. I'm assuming this is still working. Sorry, my video is going a little wonky. There's a lot of different ways we're going to look at this, and there's a lot of different ways that until we can look at being supported from that angle and see all the other things you're contributing, not money, because in ascension, money is not valued like it is from your human consciousness. Your higher consciousness is not going to value it like that. It's never going to be able to value it like that. So until we can work through all of that programming, where me giving my energy to this, whether I'm cleaning the house, you know, maybe I'm a nanny to children, you know, I'm raising kids, I'm going to school, I'm doing all these other things, that I'm not the prime supporter. You won't be the prime supporter again until you can be supported, but not supported from a human aspect, supported from your higher aspect. And that means you're accepting that role of being supported from your higher aspect and understanding that that's what's going on. And that's why we feel like we go backwards a lot or we go sideways a lot, because we can't kind of figure out, why is this happening again? I could support myself in my human existence. Now why all of a sudden I've got to go through all these weird iterations of support? Because we have to understand that from a human perspective, money is the only thing we thought of as support. But there's so many other ways to support a reality, but it's not valued by our human consciousness. And until we can break through all that, and you'll also find other people won't value it either, because they speak our thoughts back to us. So if other people aren't valuing it, then we can see where we're not valuing it either, and we feel self-conscious about it, and we don't really want to talk about it, and we feel judged about it because we hold judgment about it. So we have to work through all that. So you're going to find there's going to be different ways you're going to go through a lot of these realities, and different ways you're going to start to see different things chip away, and different realities you're going to get. Sometimes you're going to feel like you're in a lucid dream. You're going to feel like you're in your own Barbie land. You're going to feel like you're nothing really makes sense, and things very much will feel surreal for a while. So there's a lot of different parts we're going to go through. So when someone asks me, are we talking about the Matrix or any type of, meta land? How do we change it all? We have to change ourselves first and kind of let everything else realign. But retrofitting everything else in is where we'll get really tripped up. I mean, I cannot say that enough. And it's just trying to take one thing because we don't like the way the next thing looks. It doesn't look the way we want it to look. And now I can't remember what I was going back to talk about. When we're trying to set up, a reality, and we want it to look a certain way, and we're trying to retrofit one we have, and now we're going to be thrown. A lot of realities we kind of get thrown into because we wouldn't go unless we're forced. We don't like it. We don't want to have to deal with it. We don't like the human consciousness perception of it. We see a lot of people that'll go back and you live with your parents for a while, and people don't like that part of that journey, because it feels like, oh my God, I'm going backwards. But now can I live with my parents and be from a higher consciousness and not be from a human consciousness, from my child, from just my human child consciousness? Can I bring my higher consciousness to this reality? Let me see how the whole thing rearranges around that. That's when you have the opportunity to watch things rearrange. Not be in your child consciousness, step into your higher consciousness and expect everything else to retrofit back into that. It's more, we kind of have to take our body out of certain places, It doesn't mean things can't rearrange. It might take amount of time for different things to rearrange in the way you felt like they were going to come in. And I kind of started on this and I think I got off of it. The human mental health connections are very linear, whereas you're going to find in Ascension, when you're dealing with programming, it's not a linear thing. Before you can be maybe the supporter from a higher consciousness role, one, we have to know we value money, and we're going to take all the money we make, we're going to put that back into higher consciousness, what we know we're supposed to do from a higher consciousness perspective, not what our human wants to do, which might be to give everything to our children or give everything to our friends or whatever, or our blood family, because that might interfere with the journey they have to go on. We have to be able to see all that. We're not going to be entrusted with large amounts of money until we can be trusted to know we're going to do the higher consciousness thing with that and not the human consciousness thing, right? And that's why we might have to clear if we have a lot of issues with our blood family. And I bring this one up a lot because it's a big one. It's a big one for me. It's a big one for a lot of people. You might not, maybe you don't have a lot of blood family that's still on this plane. It can still be ancestral, or it could be playing out with someone else. It might play out with your husband. It might play out with your children, where you have to kind of look at them and see them as just souls and see them as, what can I contribute to this reality? And I have to work through all the programming I have around this, all the judgment I have around this before I can get to the next thing. It might not feel like it's connected, but it holds us back from those realities. And these kind of attachments hold us back. And we're so attached. I think I want to circle back around. I know I focus a little bit more on the Barbie movie, but I think it's more in the forefront right now. Because the Truman Show kind of makes it look like he's a victim. And does that clear a lot of victim energy out? Yes. It does. And that's why, but it also kind of shows how we feel about everything. From our human perspective, we are the Truman Show. We feel like we're a victim to everything going on around us. And we don't understand that we're the ones that create the whole thing. And we're the ones that morph the whole thing. And we shift the whole thing. And I lost a little bit on my train of thought of where I was going with the end of that. But I don't remember where I was going to go with it. I was going to go circle back around to, the Barbie movie, and I can't remember how I was going to do it. So maybe I'll just leave it at that, or I'll open up and see if I have any questions. I can't remember now what my last thing was going to be. I don't remember. I do not remember. Okay. When we're talking about, now I know where I was going to go with that. There's a lot of the part in the movie where, and I touched on this earlier, where Ken is just kind of an accessory in the movie. And we mentioned that, everyone in our reality is an accessory to us. We don't see their value till we get to a higher conscious perspective to look at them and be able to look at them from our higher aspects to see the value they did bring. We don't have that capacity from our human aspect to value anybody. So everything is kind of an accessory. And really, when you start to look at yourself as, what more do I want to go do? Do I want to play these? Because a lot of the roles we play in Ascension can feel very kind of behind the scenes kind of roles. And we kind of want to be in the limelight on certain things, but there'll be a lot of times when we're not. Because we also have to be able to look at that from a higher aspect and be able to be in those roles from a higher aspect, not from our human aspect. So until we can clear all that stuff and all of that judgment around that, then we're not going to be able to step into these higher roles. That's when we talk about stepping into our higher roles, all the stuff we have to go through before we can do that. All the stuff we have to go through before we can actually get there. And you see a lot of the collectives now clearing a lot of victim energy about certain things and being lied to and being, kind of put in, we always talk about not being wanting to put in a box, but all of our human realities put us in a box. There's no way to kind of escape that. They all kind of put us in a box. They put us in a different spot. And when we try to kind of break out of that, there's a lot of I feel ostracized for that. We feel very critical, but a lot of times we hold that, all the time, we hold that own judgment of ourselves because we were not meant to believe that's what we should do. That's not how our human DNA works. So we have to look at all of that. So there's so many different things we can unpack about how we feel about what your reaction is to the Barbie movie. How do you look at the Barbie movie? Where are you at in your ascension process and how you look at it? Truman shows the same way. When you look at any of this kind of content that shows a matrix-like reality, how do we react to it? Where are we? Are we in the phase where we're constructing our own perfect little world? Are we in the phase where we had our own perfect little world and that all got destroyed? Are we trying to rebuild? Are we watching our human life fade away? Are we still kind of in our human experience and not ready to leave any of that and see it as more of something trying to implode it from the inside? And you see a lot of that now. Everything's trying to implode it from the inside, which to me you can't really do. There's too much fight in that, but from our human perspective, that's what we try to do. We try to kind of implode it from the inside out. Not understanding that truly letting it implode is just everyone leaving it. There's no party if no one's there to attend it. And that's kind of what we get to eventually, where we've seen all the collectives over time fade because there's no one in the collectives anymore. And all those whole realities just fade away. So, okay, I think that's good for today. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to go back and check this video and see how it actually came through. All right, see ya.